Entering the summer novelties for 2022 from Märklin, Trix and LGB. A short but sweet product range will delight you with selected models in all sizes. First off, an anniversary.
In der Schweiz gibt's dieses Jahr, nehme ich schon mal vorweg, einiges zu feiern.
Switzerland has a lot to celebrate this year, including the 175th anniversary of the Swiss Railway. For this occasion, Gudrun Geiblinger designed the 420-251, a neat Jubilee locomotive.
In Zusammenarbeit mit SBB Cargo.
In cooperation with SBB Cargo, we had an electric locomotive covered with various motifs showing the historic timeline of the Swiss Railway.
Hauptmotiv natürlich.
The main motive for us and the Swiss Railway is the Swiss crocodile. Of course, that had to be included. And we have other nice scenes in which milk cans are loaded, or in which the SBB cargo locomotive leaves one of the new tunnels.
Aktuellen Tunnel rausfährt.
It is obvious through our hand sample made of molded parts that the freight railroad has a heart.
Ja, ich finde, uns ist da einfach eine.
I think this locomotive turned out beautifully, especially the illustrated Swiss crocodile, a real eye-catcher.
Das ist einfach ein Hingucker.
The half-O model has been released by Märklin and Trix, and another Swiss locomotive series has long since enjoyed cult status. A legendary locomotive is celebrating its 70th birthday. It is the electric locomotive from the AE66 series. The two pre-series locomotives started rolling in 1952. After the teething phase was over, another 118 locomotives were delivered to the SBB between 1955 and 1966. For decades, the AE66 was the Gotthard locomotive par excellence. The 25 locomotives that had chrome decorations on their front ends had a particular noble appearance. Some vehicles, such as number 11421, remained as museum locomotives and are now celebrating their anniversaries too.
Zu diesem Anlass haben wir uns.
Because of this, we decided to fundamentally rebuild our model, which is already a bit outdated. First of all, we installed the centrally mounted motor, which our model did not have yet. Now 2 axles in each bogie are propelled by it. We have installed lighting in the cab and engine room. And, in response to many customer requests, we have adapted the front section by including the window bar, which was previously missing, in the tooling. This had been previously molded onto the front windows. The nice thing about current museum locomotives is that we can also use them on layouts related to the present time, in front of older cars as museum trains. This has a coherent effect. The museum locomotives are usually in era 3, 4 or 5 condition, depending on when they were in service. As a result, historical trains with these kinds of locomotives also fit on the layout. Special cargo makes all the difference.
The 3
RS684 stake cars all have a load of glulam beams, which fits beautifully with the theme of sustainability. The 3 cars are attached to the Vectron with the inscription Das ist grün, which means this is green. The spiffy 193-310 model is factory sold out, but MHI dealers had made advanced preparations. The stake cars have different road numbers. In the prototype, the DB Vectron is also used in Switzerland. In addition, it can often be seen on the Rhine. This engine can also be found in freight service. The model of the Class 66, in a fictitious version as a private railroad locomotive, comes exclusively for the Märklin stores with numerous digital functions, such as the standard smoke set with dynamic steam emission. A controlled high-efficiency drive is centrally installed. It acts on 4 axles. A Type G2000BB diesel locomotive. Its prototype is at home in Belgium. The metal model with built-in digital decoder and many functions is released by Märklin and Trix in half-O. Another freight locomotive is on the rails internationally.
Die Baureihe 189 ist die sogenannte Europa-Lok.
The Class 189, the so-called Europa-Lok, is a multi-system locomotive that can run in different countries depending on how it is equipped. We are reproducing the 189-091 of the Rotterdam rail feeding. This locomotive is registered both in Germany and the Netherlands. This can be seen most clearly on the roof. Here we see the pantographs that are required in the respective countries.
Mit einem dreiteiligen Kesselwagenset der Firma Vascosa. Die Wagen sind in den Niederlanden registriert, haben wir ein wunderschönes, passendes Kesselwagenset zu dieser Lokomotive.
The 189 can also be used very well on German-style layouts. Several such car sets could also be used to form longer tank car trains. If you are a DC railroader, your dealer will be happy to swap the wheel sets. This also applies to the SGNSS flat car, loaded with a 40-foot container. It will make combined freight trains even more colorful. But there are also new cars for N-railroaders. The X-container flat cars type SGNSS, here now with wooden loading frames, for example, XT stakes. These are 4 cars to form a unit. With them, you can nicely recreate wooden load traffic, especially in Scandinavia. This is because they are released to Hector Rail in Scandinavia. Resourceful N-railroaders will certainly create a suitable load. The Baden Pacific Express locomotives of the Class 4H were built in 3 lots in 20 units between 1918 and 1920. At the end of the 1940s, most of them were sidelined, but a few were used for other purposes. The 18314 was designed for something special. It came to VESM Halle in 1948. Was rebuilt and given a nickname.
Das ist der Schorsch, nachdem wir sie in Hanoi realisiert haben.
This is the Schorsch. After we had developed it for HAVO, it was clear to us that we could also implement it for Gauge 1. The prototype, the 02314-1, is a mighty engine. The model will be made of metal, for example zinc die-cast for the essential details, highly detailed with attached brass parts and fully equipped. Current buffers, multi-stage cylinder steam, wheel-synchronized steam output and sound, of course. And following the S26, we've packed in a new feature. It's a locomotive engineer who operates the controller. The highly detailed all-metal version is very inspirational with a total of 32 functions, including an engine light. It's the new star in the Märklin Gauge 1 program. Numerous examples of the Class 101 are in service as advertising locomotives. Another one was recently added, which joins the 2022 summer new items as an excellent replica. The prototype is the Deutsche Bahn AG Express locomotive with road number 101088. It is currently traveling on intercity trains throughout Germany and advertises the steam railroad route Saxony. All existing narrow gauge railroads are grouped together here. The model is made in cooperation with the Saxony Upper Lusatia Railway Company exclusively for Märklin and Trix with a built-in MFX Plus decoder. A centrally mounted motor propels all 4 axles. There is also cab lighting and a coupler controlled by a guide mechanism. The engine is decorated by my favorite narrow-gauge steam locomotive, the 1K, which we have brought to LGB before. It is really great and stands out when it hauls the white cars. It's so much fun. Here you can see the Minitrix model. Both locomotive sides are printed differently, as in the prototype, and show not only the 1K, but also the Saxonia and the Sachsenstolz. Not only is the 101088 being released as a Minitrix model, but also as an HAVO version from Märklin and Trix, and, of course, also in Z or Z scale. Steam engines continue to fascinate people. The real fan likes to look outside the box. The Litra E from Denmark is a case in point. One of the surviving locomotives is in Odense. Märklin presented an excellent half-O model in the museum there at the beginning of April. The guests were even greeted in German by the museum's director.
Mein Name ist Steen Osager. Ich bin Direktor des Museums. Herzlich willkommen im...
My name is Steen Osager. I am the director of the museum. Welcome to the National Railway Museum of Denmark in Odense. We are happy and proud that you, Mr. Janko Franke and Märklin, have chosen us as the place for your special presentation.
Deren Zeuge wir bald werden.
The far north has insiders too.
Jeg blev modelbanefan, da jeg var barn.
I have been a fan of model trains ever since I was a child. I grew up with them. My friends also had model trains. Mine was then packed away for many years, but as an adult, I rekindled my interest in model trains. Becoming a Märklinist for me meant taking out the old trains and having them converted for digital operation. That was a fantastic experience. We in Denmark want models that are as realistic as possible, and the presentation of the E-machine is something great. We have been dreaming about this in the Insider Club for a very long time. It is so nice that the engine is being released now. Of course, we hope to see more Danish models, but we also know that we are a small country, much smaller than Germany or other European countries. But we want, also with the help of our Insider Club, to spread the message. It's a good thing that new models are being released.
Men vi tror og vi håber på, også ved hjælp af vores Insiderklub, at kunne sprede budskabet og sige, det her det er godt. Mist Zealand, som jeg er medlem af, er en
The Märklin Insider Regulars Table Zealand is a group of Danish insiders who meet once a month, usually at a dealer or elsewhere where we hold workshops. I also offer many courses on digital model railroading. I have a U-shaped model railroad layout. It measures about 3.5 by 3.5 meters. I mainly run digitally, and am always working on digital solutions. I was curious about the new item that Märklin would be showing here. And I think it's great that it's one of the legendary electric engines. Now I'm looking forward to seeing the model on my own layout.
Jeg glæder mig rigtig meget til at se den på min egen bane.
Also das Modell zeichnet natürlich aus, dass wir...
It is very characteristic of the model to have a very high level of detail. This model also has a lot of details. In fact, we could reproduce almost every little part. Here and there, we had to make a little compromise. For example, concerning the ladder behind me. With the ladder attached, we can't operate through radius 1, because it would be too tight. Our fingers already get jammed in the prototype, so we had to leave that out on the model. We have fully equipped the locomotive with sound, with everything you know from Märklin. It also has a built-in smoke generator. We have already implemented this in our last larger steam locomotive developments. So we're operating at a very high standard, typical of Märklin. And indeed, the eye of the steam locomotive enthusiast can hardly get enough of the intricate details on the metal model. In addition, there are many other digital functions. Striking, the tub-style tender and the pointed smokebox door. Unfortunately, this model is sold out at Märklin and Trix. Therefore, please ask your dealer. He might still have some of these unique engines on the shelf. LGB brings a variant of the Saxon 7K. Built in 1929, it belongs to the SDG, the Saxon Steam Railway Company. The Fichtelbergbahn from Kranzal to Oberwiesenthal is celebrating its 125th anniversary this year. To mark this occasion, we have released the 7K in an appropriate version, and 3 cars, 2 passenger cars with different roofs and an open observation car. The somewhat lighter green paint scheme with the lettering Fichtelbergbahn is typical. Like the locomotive, the SDG Type KB cars are also in Era 6 design. They have prototypical interior details and metal wheel sets. The prototype of this car was built on the basis of an old passenger car. In the previous year, the 7K of the Zittau Narrow Gauge Railroad was already presented as an LGB model. Technically, it is the same, visually a little different. For example, it has welded water boxes and a different smokebox door. We have implemented these little details that differ from the original. This version offers many switchable functions, which is also a lot of fun. And what else is new? At the Rhaetian Railway we have provided another sliding wallbox car, this time without advertising. We already had many that advertised water or beer. Now a normal sliding wallbox car, but with a shortened roof and in normal aluminum color, as it is still much on the rails today. The color contrasting levers and fine struts on the opening doors are quite eye-catching. The Swiss Railway is celebrating its 175th anniversary in 2022. With the model of the 420-251, Märklin also is extending its best wishes for this anniversary in Z or Z scale. A bell-shaped armature motor is in operation on board the engine, and all axles are propelled. The design has been well received.
Ich finde sehr schönes Design.
I find the design very beautiful. The machine is making its way. For the MHI, we have once again chosen the theme of the post office. With a V36, 2 GMHs, we are also releasing the Class 50, with only 3 boiler superstructures, which is a new feature. In the model, the locomotive casing is cast from bronze. The linkage and controls are prototypical and fully functional. An eye-catcher, the cab tender. In the addition of fine manufacturing models in bronze comes the OM 52, a gem for the collector. This is the hand sample of the Märklin magazine annual car for 2022 in Z or Z. And a colorful locomotive is also entering the program.
The Vectron der ELL?
The Vectron of ELL in Era 6 with a Bell armature motor, LED lighting with 3 white lights in the front, 2 red ones in the rear, in this wonderful colorful design. A twilight ambience. At this time of day, an interior light in a passenger car certainly comes in handy. A slider on one of the cars and a current-carrying close coupling ensure that it shines brightly in the train. However, short power interruptions, for example due to dirt on the rails, were unfortunately the cause of unsightly flickering up until now. This is now a thing of the past, because a new interior lighting system with buffer accumulators provides trouble-free lighting. And that's how long the buffer memory works, as seen here on an older car. The length of the board is variable and can be dimmed individually. The universal board will be available with either warm or cool white light. A power supply and current-carrying couplers are needed for connection. DC railroaders will need a separate power supply. Thanks to the new flicker-free operation, running the layout at night is even more enjoyable.